Hello, writer, and welcome back to my life. It's Writer Wednesday, the day where I give you my tips and advice on the art and the business of writing, tell you how I do what I do as an indie author. As always, these Writer Wednesday videos and all videos on my YouTube channel are supported by my patrons on Patreon, so if you want to check that out, there's a link in the description. By the way, don't mind my peeling skin, lots of sun recently. This week's question comes to us from patron Kristen Stevens, who asks, how do you ask for advice from other authors without coming across as a bit of a douche? I wish that this was the first question every author asked themselves before they went asking other people, but so in every author community, and every writer community, and every self-publishing community that I've ever seen, there are the people who come in and ask questions in a bit of a douchey way. In a way that makes it clear you have done no research whatsoever. You haven't looked into the basics of the industry, you haven't looked at the basic actions that you should take, whatever it is, you are asking questions that are so simple and basic that you should already know the answer to that. Now, in some ways, I guess that this can be a little bit understandable because some people still think that indie publishing or self-publishing is brand new, was just invented yesterday, and they don't know maybe that there is a wealth of information out there about how to do it. And maybe this is just a little bit millennial of me, but when I want to know how to do something, the first thing that I ask is Google. And if Google, after my very best search efforts, can't answer my question, that is when I turn to someone and say, hey, this thing, how do I do this thing? Do you have any advice? But hey, some people just aren't used to operating that way, and again, they might not know where to go to get the information they need to get a basic grounding in the subject. It is still possible to stumble into bad advice out there, whether you're talking about writing or you're talking about publishing. When it comes to publishing, the Kindle Gold Rush, people are still out there thinking that you can earn $1,000 a day with 1 hour of work, and it's just, you can stumble on one of those books and get bad advice. But that does not mean you should go into a community, a Facebook group, whatever it is, and say, how do I do blah thing? The first piece of advice you should be looking for is, what resources should I study? That is the best and most wonderful advice that you can ask for because, one, it's very easy to give you a list of things to study, much easier than actually answering your question. And that also applies to writing or publishing. If somebody asks me what are references I should study when it comes to writing, I can give them the Story Grid, Stephen King's On Writing, Techniques of the Selling Writer. I've got a whole list of books on writing that they can read to learn how to write. Speaking of which, I have a list of references that I will stick in the description of this video so that you can read them and find out what I read when I want to learn how to tell stories better. And the same is true on the indie publishing side of things. I would so much rather give somebody a list of references for them to study than do the work for them. If somebody comes in and says, what are basic actions I can take to market my book? I know they've done no research. I know they've never looked in any good reference material to find the answer to that question because every single book about indie publishing talks about this and like almost nothing else. Whereas if somebody comes in and says, what are the best books out there on indie publishing marketing, then I can say, Write, Publish, Repeat, How to Market a Book by Joanna Penn, Let's Get Digital, Let's Get Visible. The best thing to do is not to ask for these basic pieces of information, these basic pieces of advice that are out there that everybody knows. The best thing is to get lists of references that people think you should be studying. And, you know, even do it as a survey thing. If everybody says that you should be reading Let's Get Digital and Let's Get Visible by David Gaughran, yeah, you should probably read that book. Now, let's say you've got these references, right? And you've read these books. You've got your basics. I think at that point, the most important thing you can do is to put together a plan, your writing plan, your production plan, your release plan, and then your business plan, your marketing plan. And based off of what you have studied, these plans will come to you easily or not quite so easily. And if there's something that you're unsure about or hesitant about, first, go and check in the book again and see if they covered this specific thing that you are planning on doing. Because a lot of the time that'll happen. You'll be like, oh, okay, I get it. And you'll sit down to plan out, here's how I'm going to market my book. And then you're going to get to a step and you're going to be like, wait, what did you say about that step? Then go back and look in the book and see if they said anything about what you're trying to do. And then, if they didn't, and you still have questions on a step, or you're not sure you're doing it the right way, or the best way, or there could possibly be a better way, then you ask for advice. Because then not only are you showing that you have done the work, you are actually validating people who have also done the work. Probably the indie publishing community that I'm most active in is the SPF community, Mark Dawson's Ads for Authors community on Facebook. And let me tell you, when people come in there and they say, I have put together an advertisement plan, here are the people that I'm targeting, here are my ads, here is everything that I have put together, and then they say, but the ads aren't working and I'm not exactly sure why. That kind of question gets so much response, and I'll tell you why. Because they are saying, I have gone as far as I can possibly go studying on my own. You are a community of people who have done the study but also have the practical, personal experience. Can you share anything with me that comes from your experience and your first-hand knowledge of the subject? I mean, let's be frank. That's an ego boost. When I see a question like that, I just, I'm just crack my knuckles and I go, well, I can tell you from having run tens of thousands of dollars of ad campaigns that have sold hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of books, and I am so willing to give that person help and advice because I know that they are on the same road that I have been on. They have worked as hard as I have to get to the thing that they want, which is the same thing I want. But when a person comes in and says, I've never set up a Facebook ad before, how do you get started? If they did post that in the SPF community, and trust me, lots of people have, crickets. Because everyone's like, you don't even have the basic level of respect for the subject to look at anything, at any of the freely available resources that you can just find for free. So the best general advice is to start out by asking people who are already working in the field or successful in the field what things you should study, what reference materials you should get your hands on, and then take those reference materials and get as far as you possibly can in self-study, in self-teaching, or studying it and getting as far as you can on your own knowledge and your own blood, sweat, and tears. And when you have hit a point where there is something you still can't understand based off of the reference text, or something that you have tried and think you understand off of the reference text, but you're not able to achieve the result you're trying to achieve, that's when you turn around, explain what you've done, how it relates to what you've studied already, and that is when you ask for further advice based on practical experience. And boy, you will just be one of the most valued members of whatever community you're in, because you will just, people will love you. People love people who act like that. Full stop. Thank you so much for the question, Kristen. As always, it was a good one, and I hope that you and others found the answer helpful. A reminder to everyone else that my $5 patrons on Patreon, like Kristen, are the only ones who are able to request topics for me to cover in these videos, and they also get them 2 weeks further in advance. So if that sounds good to you, check out my Patreon. There's a link somewhere around here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next Wednesday. Bye!